All right, good. My name is Rick Moore, and I'm your host for another episode of Right. And today we're interviewing Helen McKay Sanders, who's an author. She's done a fabulous series called The Ringmaker. And greetings, Helen.
How do you do, Rick?
Yes, pretty well, thanks.
Excellent.
Yes. Tell me a little bit about your book, because I'm very excited about your book. What genre is it?
Um, Ringmaker is what I would term medieval fantasy. I think that's actually a genre now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it is. It's if you've ever read which did it started out as a trilogy, but I think it went on to 5 or 6 books. The Earthsea, Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. It's kind of in that vein. It's got that medieval flavor to it that I it really touched a spark inside of me, and I wanted to do that.
Right. Honestly, I've never read Ursula Gwyn, but now that you mention it, and it sounds exciting to me, I'll have to read the series.
Yeah, Wizard of Earthsea is quite well done, and I think she probably considered it not her best work,
Right?
but for fantasy writers, it was just an amazing series. I
Heaven,
think
right?
you'd really enjoy it. Yeah,
It was heaven.
yeah.
Yeah. So, where in the world, I know a little bit about your writing, but where in the world do you come up with your ideas? I know it's a common question, but honestly, yours are stunning. Your worlds, your created worlds, are as complicated as anything I've read in, say, The Lord of the Rings.
Well, I wish they weren't that complicated. I think the first place that I get my ideas is when I go on walks. Many people sit and think. I
Right?
actually have to move forward in space and time to get my best ideas. I also get ideas from dreams because I keep a
Really?
dream journal. I think most writers do. And if they don't, it's they're just missing a third of their life right there. Why not, don't live their
Honestly, I don't think most writers do. I think that was
life?
the whole thing. I mean, the 19th century, they kept dream journals,
Uh-huh.
like Edgar Allan Poe kept a dream
Well, well,
and
you think
Coleridge.
about it, writers are all about symbolism, imagery, metaphor, etc., etc. And you're just going to find tons of themes and all kinds of weird stuff in your dreams. I mean, it's your basically your psyche working out all the crap that you encounter during the day and in your life. And what it's a treasure trove, really. But I also get ideas from reading other really good writers.
That's
Like,
that's got to be a key because honestly, you they say that readers are writers,
yeah,
writers are readers rather,
and vice versa.
and
Yeah,
that's got to be really true.
yeah, I
That's
think
really
so.
got to be true. Honestly, you have to be reading all the time to write well.
I think so. And
Yeah.
I think some writers might, you pick up other people's voices as you go along, but in the editing process, you can go back to your own voice. And it takes a while for a writer to get their own voice going. And that's just part of the process.
I think it does really true, right? That's
Yeah,
really true. Back to your dream sequence, so your dream journal. You actually keep a dream journal, right?
sure.
I think
Yeah.
so many readers have abandoned dreams journals. It was very common in the past, but they've gotten away from it.
Oh,
And it's exciting to me that you actually keep a written journal of your dreams.
well, I have some fairly hallucinatory dreams. So it's a good harvest ground for ideas.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I don't do kids, I don't do drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you're giving me two. Do you think of any other ways that you create worlds?
Oh, really? You have to sit down and work. But again, I go for walks and I ponder through the aspects of, well, atmosphere is very important to me. Characterization is
You
super
know,
important.
that's also a word you hear very little of today. Atmosphere.
Really? Atmosphere?
Yes, and
Well,
it's what makes your writing different, I think. Honestly, the atmosphere that you have in your work comes across compelling.
oh, good. That's great.
It really does. Atmosphere is so neglected by today's writers who are more formulaic in their writing.
Yeah, see, now I happen to use devices that I would consider very de rigueur in fantasy, things like swords and dragons. But I will tell you, if you're talking about ideas, I have this incredible fear of coming across as puerile and unimaginative. So from an
Right.
idea standpoint, I test out ideas. Like I told you, I sat on the Ringmaker manuscript for 6 years because I thought it was trite.
Right.
When I went back and read it again, I realized that some of my ideas were actually really enjoyable. I really liked them. They sparked interest in me. And I figured if they're going to spark interest in me, they'll spark interest in others. So what I'm saying is I want an idea to not just be too commonplace, like the idea of man versus animal. It's a theme. It's some fantasy writers use it, some don't. But I wanted to try and put an original spin on it, just like Dune. Dune and those damn worms. That was a very interesting idea with the spice and,
That really
and
was
time.
an interesting idea.
Yeah, and I don't want to be just to have boring ideas. And so as
Right.
an author, I can pile on too many ideas and that gets overwhelming for the reader. So actually had to learn to back off.
So you let them gestate for a while, right?
Yeah, or the editor says, what is this? You forgot to follow up with this device, and now I've got 3 more devices thrown in my face. Could you please stop it?
Honestly, so many writers today make their books cookie cutters.
Do they really?
Yeah, yeah. Just
I don't know. I haven't read that many.
well, they take tropes. You're familiar with tropes, of course.
Yeah, I know what a trope
And
is.
they trope the reader to death, the poor reader, to
Oh.
death, and they don't make an original spin on the ideas.
Oh, that's too
They
bad.
just spew them out. Because I see a lot of books that are submitted to me, and I read them, and man, they're just so commonplace
Okay.
that I put them down. But yours stick out in my mind as really, really original.
Oh, well, good.
Yes. So tell me about your main characters in your work. What makes them do what they do, and any other thing you can add to the main characters? I'd appreciate.
Well, whenever you have a main character that you really want to have that main character get shocked out of their boots, right?
Yeah, you
You
do.
want because why are you reading about a character unless that character is going to change somehow? So every single character that I have that is a main character is going to go through some major change in his or her life.
You mean like the character arc? Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you want to call that, I don't know. I think that's something that you should do as a writer. I don't
Right.
think you should just let the character lie there and not develop. I mean, I'm thinking, what is that? It's a Rin Tin Tin.
Yes.
It is a comic where the character never changes, but the plots are actually the character. The plot is actually what changes in the story, and it
Right.
becomes the character. Whereas Tintin, it was Tintin, not Rin Tin Tin. Tintin just
I was
is
wondering
he
where
just
you're
goes
going with
through
that.
experiencing the plot, which is the story, and it's basically the character.
Wow.
Tintin is just the vehicle by which we see the plot unfold.
Right.
And the plot becomes the character. That's my theory. I don't know if that's really true or not. But for me, I have a character. I want the damn character to develop. Otherwise, what the hell am I doing with my time as a writer?
Right.
And then I want to make the devices inside, like Bellador's sword, for example. It's not really a sword, of course. It represents his father to him, and it represents the history that he is afraid of. He's quite afraid of what that sword represents.
Right.
And he's not even really good at using it, but he's forced to use it. Do you see that kind of thing? I'm
Yep.
sure other people use swords to represent exactly the same thing. I just wanted it to develop the character or have that feature of it that represents that piece of Bellador
Right.
searching for his father, what have you. Savir,
I think that's an odd twist. I mean, it's a really good twist, though, but it's it's the kind of originality that you come to expect from you.
oh, well, good.
So you're telling me about another character, right?
Oh, just Savir and her, what she,
I found her fascinating, by the way.
yeah, she's a piece of work, Savir.
Yep.
She was a diplomat who got captured and tortured and by one of her own kind, so that speaks to discrimination, of course, and racism and all those things that we currently have to battle with, especially, I'm a female, and I've been in situations where I get that kind of crap coming and going, and you try not to do it in your own mind. But anyway, Savir is, she's a dragon changeling. And transformation, of course, is a big theme in all my books,
Right.
but it's a huge theme in The Ringmaker. And Savir, like I said, is a changeling, and she is not comfortable with it. She doesn't know anything at all about it. She only knows that she's been able to use one aspect of a changeling's talent to help her in her role as a diplomat. And so her journey is to first claim her identity, and second, claim her identity as a dragon. And it's not in the first book, claiming her identity as a dragon has only started. She actually has to go and meet other changelings that will help her learn how to be a dragon in her changeling form. And of course, that will reflect on her character development and also further the plot, because that's what you do.
Yes,
That's what you do.
what amazed me about her was her psychological complexity
Yeah,
was really telling.
I really enjoyed that
Me
writing
too,
her.
me too.
Yeah. Bellador's got some issues going on as well, but his character won't really get developed until it's either called the Piper King or the Shy Piper. I haven't come up with a title for his book yet.
Right. I've got to say that one of the characters, so in characters in quotes, that intrigues me most is the dragons. Could you tell the readers, listeners, how they fit into your story?
Well, the dragons, like I said, symbol of transformation, and there's the bigger overarching plot theme is, there's a bad guy on the horizon. He too is a dragon changeling.
Right.
So Savir really does have to go and meet her tribe of dragons in order to figure out how to assist, or maybe even by herself, take down the main bad guy.
Right.
And I don't really want to talk about the plot and where it's going, but that is how dragons feed into this. I would say in this particular world, dragons evolved, and first there were humans, and then there were human changelings. So there's 4 different kinds of changelings in this book: dragons, horses, dog, wolf, and eagle. Those are the 4 types of animals that humans can change into. And again, in this world, all magic has been lost. It's taboo. There's reasons for that. And so it's these people that are trying to come to terms with who they are in context of a society that does not like them. Can you think of any kind of person in society who that might, like gay people or black people? It's the same sort of thing, only it's got the trappings of the tapestry of fantasy devices and themes,
Right.
dragon instead of a black person, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. I know you find this an odd question, but what role is played by the flute of smoke in your story?
The Flute of Smoke.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Fascinating. I don't know why, but it really fascinated me because the concept of the flute of smoke is so odd.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a musical instrument, and again, in fantasy, and a lot of myths, like I can think of a Japanese myth where there were 2 warring clans that came together, and one clan had, I think it was a mirror, a sword, and then some kind of box. These 3 items were said to carry, whoever held onto the power that was imbued in these 3 items would rule Japan, would bring Japan together.
Right.
And that's a myth. But, items hold a lot of historical and power value for cultures, and they always have.
Right.
And so the Flute of Smoke and the drum and the Black Triton are the 3
was going to ask
influence.
you about the Black Stripe Knight next, but I think,
Yeah, these three devices or these three things in ritual and for this particular culture, if you can bring them all three together, they represent unity. And the bad guy on the horizon is going to need for the people with these tools to have some unity. And
there was the Flute of Smoke. And what was the second one?
it's a drum, and I can't remember the name of the drum
Yes, okay.
because it's in another book called The Last Tracker. And
Ah,
but the Black Stripe I just wrote,
Black
so I remember the name of that. Yeah, it's a 6 to 7 book series, and it's like keeping track of geometric algorithms. Some of it I forget, some of it is written down. Most of it's in my head.
now, I'd ask you to tell me about the plot in your story, but I don't want to give anything away. So is there anything you can tell me about the plot that will make it understandable to our listeners? Or would you rather pass that question by? Because I've got more questions for you, but
You're breaking up just a little.
okay, can you tell anything about the plot to our listeners?
The plot is pretty standard, but in that standard plot, magic has gone out of the world.
Right?
It was considered taboo because what happened was the magical culture had to use magic to subdue an evil entity. And so when magic came back into the world, haltingly, what had happened was this evil entity had created an endless winter. If you create an endless winter, if you think about it, there's just no food. There's no food.
Right.
So people for a year, think of the Irish famine, the potato famine, which sounds funny, potato famine. Not funny at all if you don't have anything
It's
to
not
eat
funny at all.
for months and months on end.
Right.
So that's what happened to these people. So when magic started coming back into the world, the general population thought it was pretty bad, like magic was bad, because the last people who'd used magic on them had murdered their entire families. So magic is not good in this world. So it's all these people who do have magical skills trying to hide and yet trying to figure out how they can use their powers to help other people,
Right.
but not get murdered in the.
Now you
the
see that's
genre.
a pretty standard plot in,
Yeah, totally standard.
but is that true?
Yeah, of course it is. It's fantasy, for God's sake. It's fantasy.
I think so, right? All right.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm trying to do is really make strong characters. I live for characterization in the books that I read. Just
You-
live for it. And I also live for the way writers describe an environment, like Patrick White or Shirley Hazard
You can
or
really tell in your writing too, Helen. You can.
oh really? Well, that's good because you try.
All right. Since your story is fantasy, what elements do you draw on to create the tapestry that you have interwoven around your story? That's a complicated question, so I'll repeat it. Since your story is fantasy, what elements did you draw on to create the tapestry that you have interwoven around your story?
Oh, where I live.
Where you live?
Mhm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I go for a walk, I would come back and describe in detail what I saw that day. And then and in actuality, the whole Ringmaker series, the whole setting is just the Pacific Northwest.
Really?
Yeah, because it's right in front of me. And I figure if literary historical fiction or literary fiction writers
Right?
if you read literary fiction,
Yes.
it's like reading about a fantastical world because it's so well written. Well, why can't fantasy writers do the same thing? I'm just going to use what I got right in front of me. It's just going to be my usage of the language, hopefully, that makes it beautiful and intriguing. If I pull that off, hooray. If I don't pull it off, I need to work harder.
Kind of like James Lee Burke, which is a mystery writer you may not have
Who?
read, but James Lee Burke.
Oh, okay.
He weaves
Okay.
his language into a rich tapestry
Yeah.
for his environment. It's
Okay.
really quite something. But yes, you're talking about the same ideas he has, right?
Okay. Good.
So, in conclusion, Could you tell me a little bit about the second book in this series? The
Well, again, it's about character, but with this person in particular, I start from the time she was born practically,
right,
because she, like all my main characters, has a special talent, and she has to figure out where it comes from, how it's viewed in her world, and she has a very strong relationship with her father. And her father actually tries to get her a good teacher, and in so doing, they have to go on a journey, and while
right,
they're journeying, he tells her stories, and some of the stories are really childlike and funny, and others are history. And when he realizes what he's got on his hands in Fella is the name of the main character,
right,
what her talent is, after the teacher explains to him what he has
right.
as a child, then his teaching to her, his education of her gets a little more serious. And that's about as far as I want to go with it there, because terrible things happen and she has to make her way in the world and blah blah blah.
Yes.
You know. Yeah.
Well, anyway, in conclusion, I'd really, really recommend that the readers of the site and the listeners to the site get a copy of The Ringmaker and read it, because it's well worth your while and it's fantastic. Helen, it's been a pleasure interviewing you today.
Okay, thank you,
I
Rick. I
appreciate it.
appreciate it.
All right. Tune in next episode of Right.
Okay, bye bye.